So welcome Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Kick, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Welcome, everyone. Appreciate everyone being here on a Sunday evening. This is, again, a focus of getting you guys off your dinner and having a conversation with us. So decided to go live with Caleb Tolzman. Caleb is someone who has worked with me as Chief Operating Officer for the past decade, and someone that I think you guys will learn a lot from. So the conversation today is how to become unstoppable in 2023. And this comes down to fortifying your mind, the things that you can do to become a rock star, the things you can do to fortify your mind, to get to the right attitude, to be able to crush 2023. We're sitting here just shy of 30 days, sitting 28 days until the end of the year. And so this is an important conversation to get things ready. So one of the conversations I want to start with is the importance of fortifying your mind, the importance of understanding the diseases of attitude, as Jim Rohn talked about years ago. And like anything else, if you have negative things happening to you and you have negative things in your mind, you're plugging into negative people, surrounding yourself with negative people, the weeds are going to grow in your garden. And if you don't look at those weeds and understand the weeds are going to be there and understand how to prime yourself to win, how to prime yourself for success, and know that shit's going to happen to you next year. How many of you guys all can understand that and believe that shit's going to happen in your life next year? It's not going to be every single day you're going to wake up and have something positive happening. Shit's going to happen next year.
Which is actually a positive thing.
It is. And it teaches you how you handle those situations. It teaches you how to move things forward. But the reality is it's always a battle. There's always a battle in your mind. There's always a battle, good versus evil, positive versus negative, darkness versus light, tyranny versus democracy. And the whole thing is that if you don't set yourself up to win, you're not going to win. And that comes down to the mindset. The mind, in my opinion, is 85 to 90% of it. Execution is 10 to 15% of it. So I'm going to talk with Caleb a bit. Caleb is, just so you know a little bit about his background. He started living with us when he was about 15 years old and went to college right out of high school. And from there, decided to move to South Carolina with us, and decided that out-of-state tuition was not going to be healthy because it was so expensive, and then asked me if he could work for me for a year in order to basically get through that year and make some money in order to go to college. And then he spent that year and pissed off everyone in his family when he said he wasn't going to go to college and was going to drop out and work with me full-time, and now it's been a decade later. So
Doesn't
Caleb,
seem like that long, though.
No, it hasn't. You look
flies.
great. You look great. So here's my question,
Not too
Caleb.
shabby.
My question is, look at the path over the last decade for you, and what are the things that you've done to set yourself up to win, set yourself up to be a rock star in every area of your life? What have you done to really fortify your mind, to keep out the negativity, and to set the stage to become unstoppable every year?
I think the biggest thing is probably setting a plan and then working through that plan. But the funny thing is, I don't think the plan's ever worked out exactly how I expected it to.
Mm-hmm.
There's always adjusting, and there's a lot of frustration too when you're doing that, because again, you expect a certain outcome, you put in the time and effort that you think that's going to be needed, and then something totally different comes up in most cases, and then you kind of adjust on the fly. And then fast forward to now, having kids, it's even more that way, because there's never really a stable schedule to say, like, this is how things are going to go. So I think that's probably the biggest thing as far as my success, is being able to make those adjustments, and then understand that, you might plan for something, XYZ outcome,
Mm-hmm.
but, you're not going to get anywhere if you worry too much about whether you're going to get that exact outcome or not. You really just kind of have to reach and, hope for the best and then adjust as you go. So
here's the thing, and we've all talked about this before, which is everyone believes, I'm sure you guys have seen the graphic on social media, everyone thinks that success is going from here to here. And they see either a linear path or they see a line going to success. What they don't realize is success is never that way. Those people that have been massively successful over and over and over again know that path of success is usually a clusterfuck. It's usually all over the place. But the key is that you've got to fortify your mind. You've got to set your mind up every single day to prime it for the day to win. For me, it's like when I wake up in the morning, it's a battle. It's always a battle to get out of my head, meaning the negative shit, how to put the positive shit in my brain and to tackle the day. And my question to you, Caleb, I know you're a big proponent of rituals and habits. what are the habits that you started? Now, I'm going to say this story as well about Caleb. When he first started working with me, I didn't know what he was going to do or what his strengths were, his weaknesses were. Back then, when he was in high school, he was still pulling leads for me. That's pretty much it, copying and pasting and, binge watching television.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the first at least 6 months, when I started working with Caleb, the first month I said, Caleb, you need to go through and I'm going to tell you exactly which books to read. I'm going to tell you exactly the podcast to listen to, or I want you to know how I think, because I know if I teach you how to get your mind right, I can teach you the skills to do anything. And that's something Caleb has even taken to the next level. He outreads me now. I mean, he's a big studier of success and people and everything else. I'm going to start with this first. I'm going to start with, how did you go from getting out of high school, where all of your friends were out partying? They were going out 2 days a week, or going out partying every single weekend pretty much, going out drinking and being drunk, and the next day having a challenge because they're foggy and not getting shit done. How did you shift that from your friends that you grew up with and decide that you're going to win and decide you're going to choose who you surround yourself with?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that since I was able to be a part of that, I knew what it was like, going through that. You have fun in college and stuff like that. And then being around you, I got to see both ends of the spectrum. And then I got to see you as an example. And I think that kind of speaks loudly to the people that you associate and the people that you're with. Like you said, I lived with you. So I saw you crushing it. I saw you working all the time. And then I also saw you reap the rewards and all the cool things you got to do. You got to take your family to Disney. All the things that we got to do together, which was a lot of fun, great experiences. And so I think it was really just a matter of being around you so much, it kind of, bled off into me. And then it's easy to say when you have someone right there doing the exact thing that, hey, if this is going to work for you, if I put in the time, and not just you, but also all the successful salespeople that work for you as well, I got to see them follow your advice, get the results that you said they were going to get. And so for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's like, well, do I want to go to college? I was looking at doing engineering. I really love learning. I'm a very curious person. So like something like engineering, maybe I was possibly going to go into something else. And you kind of get to a point where you're like 2 years in, and my guidance counselor is kind of like, well, just kind of make a decision and go wherever. And it's kind of hard to be like, well, whatever path I want to decide to go down, I see a lot of people do that. They just kind of make a decision. Then they kind of get, well, I already went through 4 years of college. I'm already here. I might not like it. I might like it a little bit. And then you just kind of, life gets boring. You do the same thing day in and day out. Whereas I saw kind of the excitement of taking a risk to say, well, I'm not going to go do that regular path. And it's brought me to here. It's been amazing.
You were making, when you first started with me a decade ago, $12 an hour, and now you're above six figures. My question is, how challenge? And in the next couple of years, Caleb will have millions of dollars in the bank. So my question is, how challenging was it at the beginning when you're making, let's say, $12 an hour, and then you see other people, you see the career path, you see how much people make that are engineers or in other endeavors. Why did you choose to be an entrepreneur? Why did you choose to make shit money for several years just to learn and be around the people around me and other people that were massively successful and to learn what they're doing differently? How did you choose that? How did you choose to walk away from a career that would have been pretty much a sure thing because you're intelligent, very smart, and you knew you could have done that? And engineers make it, depending on $75,000, $80,000, $100,000, $125,000 a year is the range. So my question is, how did you go and say, I'm going to work $12 an hour, and all of your friends that were in school were going off and attempting to do other careers and everything else, and now they come to you and think you're just lucky and think that you've got everything because of how successful you've become. So how did you say, I'm going to make $12 an hour and be okay with that, knowing that I'm getting an education, how important that education was by working with me and around the people that I associate myself with to go to where you are today?
I'll try not to go in too many different directions, but I'll start with kind of what I said before, which was I had the example of people within your organization putting in the time and the effort, making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. And I was like, shit, like I could do what they're doing. Let me take this path. And it's not going to look the exact. And that was probably the hardest thing, is your path is never going to look exactly like someone else's.
Right.
So there's a lot of daydreaming. It's like, oh, well, if I put in the work and like a year later or 2 years later, and then 2 years down the road, it's like, well, this isn't happening as fast as I had hoped it would. But then again, you look at everyone else and you see, well, no one else had the exact same path. Some people it took 4 years. Some people it took 1 year. Some people it took 6 years. And eventually they got there. But the thing that was always the same was that they put in the time and the effort, and they never really pulled off the gas, so to speak. So I just knew whatever I'm going to do, just be all in about it. don't
Kale, I got a question
hold
for you.
back.
This is from the original Don. He said, talk about how challenging it was working with me, the original slave driver, as far as every single day and having to grind and not sleeping and doing events and doing all the things that you've done over the last decade with me, and how most people don't understand this has never been a 9 to 5. It's never been a 9 to 5 ever. It's been like, hey, some weeks is 90 hours a week, and working weekends and working evenings, and talk about that drive. And originally it started with me just slave driving you because I knew what it took to succeed in a massive way. And now, you're the kind of person that one of the few people that can outwork me. So maybe walk through a bit as far as, what that was like originally and how challenging it was going from, your buddies and maybe being a stoner and doing other shit and drinking and everything else, and going from that to all of a sudden 0 to 60 or 0 to 90 and working a fucking shit ton of hours and not sleeping and grinding and pushing and everything else to where you are today, where you're so disciplined and you have that work ethic.
I think what I'll say first is it fucking sucked because it was so boring. I mean, you said exactly what I started off doing is, back then copy pasting leads into a database for people to call on and stuff like that. And a lot of the work that I did and even still do today, there's a lot of really boring, monotonous shit. And so you really had to find, for me, like I'm really competitive. So it's like, how do I turn this into, okay, if I could get 20 of these things done in an hour, how could I get 40 done, but obviously not fuck it all up? And so I think that was finding these little ways to say, okay, just 5 more, just 10 more. I think you hear that in some kind of like Navy SEALs and stuff will talk about that. Instead of trying to think about the whole, however long Hell Week is, let's say 7 days or something like that, the whole 7 days, like the next step, the next run, quit not thinking too far ahead. And that was the same thing with like, it would be easy to be sitting there and be like, wow, I'm only making $12 an hour. Maybe I'm making $15 an hour now, and say, how the hell am I supposed to get to $200,000? Mm-hmm. But just knowing, again, and that's where trust really comes into it. And a lot of the people that we work with is about trying to tell them the same thing, which is you have to trust, because there are a lot of times where you do get in your head and you're sitting there and like, how am I supposed to go from being a basic admin to running a large portion of the company? And I could have never really saw the path 7 years ago, but now that I'm here looking back, it's like, wow, that's, it excites me for the next 7 years, because I have no idea what it's going to look like, but I do know if I keep doing what I've been doing, it's going to be phenomenal. So,
and by the way, Caleb manages about 300, little over 380 people in our company, and we're expanding to 1,000. And Caleb, let's do this. I really want to dissect what your day looks like. I want to dissect, like, when you wake up in the morning, what time, and walk through that. And by the way, you're going to see how aggressive and how crazy Caleb is. I mean, you're going to see what it takes to win. You're going to see the definition from somebody who is average to good to great to outstanding, and he is the best of the best. He is like a Navy SEAL. And, the one thing Caleb was talking about Navy SEALs is the Lessons from a SEAL by Jesse Itzler. Right, had a Navy SEAL live with him for a while, and he said the best thing he learned is he had Jesse do pull-ups, and he said, "Have you ever done 1,000 pull-ups?" Jesse was like, "Hell no." He said, "We're going to do 1,000 pull-ups today," and he would do like 5 or 10 or whatever else, and Jesse would like, "Holy shit," and then he'd stop, and then he'd regroup again, and until he could not even move his fucking arms, and he said when most people think they're done, they've got no other gear left, they got nothing left, they're only about 40%. So my question, Caleb, walk through your regimen, walk through your normal schedule, your normal day.
So I will say this has changed probably 100 times over the last couple of years. Having 2 kids now, my role changing constantly, going from, I might have been on the phone all day doing training calls to, now we might have other people handling that, and my work I can do like in the afternoons and stuff. So I'll just go through kind of what my schedule looks like now. And I have to give a huge shout out to, Rachel, my significant other, because she gives me the ability to kind of structure my schedule this way. But it starts off, now I get to wake up at 6:30. That's about when, the whole family starts stirring. The oldest one, she'll be 3 here in January. She'll start to get up about that time. And then it's, getting breakfast ready, getting ready for school, which again, some mornings, the little one's crabby, or some mornings it's perfectly fine. So really that from that 6:30 time to getting out of the door, and then depending on what's happening, if my significant other is going to work out or something like that, I'll be starting my work day somewhere between 7 or 9 o'clock. And then, the little one's at daycare, then I kind of start the day. The day is usually over by 5 or 6, excuse me, come home, the whole dinner routine, taking care of the kids, hanging out with the family. And then it's gym time, usually around 8 o'clock. 8 to 10. That gym time, like for me, I've always been really avid at exercising and things like that. It's kind of like my church. It kind of keeps me stable. It gives me my alone time. Sometimes I'll hit the sauna, do things like that. I'll get home and then, it might kind of clear my mind a little bit. And then it's work for a couple, 2 hours, 3 hours. It just depends on what's needed for that next day. And that's pretty much what an average day looks like. It's really boring, but it's really consistent.
17 calls from Ed.
Yeah, right. Ed, we like to get on the phone. But yeah, and it's not anything special. And the hard thing is actually having to adjust because, some morning or some days the little one's sick. Now what are you going to do? Or some mornings I might get a call and they're like, hey, Caleb, we got to get this done, for this deal. Okay, well, I got to move things around and restructure. So I think the biggest skill set that people can have is, A, get busy, and B, get good at adjusting on the fly because life's going to throw things at you. You're going to wake up sick. What are you going to do now? Or you might not be able to get any sleep. Last night at 2 a.m., I got up and the heater was out and it's 62 degrees in the house. And so we got to turn the fireplace on. You got a little baby that's 3 months old at home, get in front of the fireplace, call the landlord, say, hey, man, get over here and fix this. But, I couldn't have planned for that, but I was still up this morning, clean the house, prep food, go get groceries. And then, I was over here at, whatever time, 3 o'clock to work and get ready for the live. So
here, let's walk through the things that, tell me why you feel people fail, meaning why they fail, let's say, and I'm going to pick on some people for, again, TikTok. A lot of people that are on TikTok are a little bit younger, our audience there. So you get out of high school. Tell me why you feel you have built this legacy and have built this environment to be a multi-millionaire and compared that to people that were, again, 18, 19, 20 years old and the path they took. Why do you think people fail when they get out of high school and become average versus become extraordinary?
I think that, and there's probably a lot of reasons, and for me, I think probably one of the things that could have derailed me is I've always looked at, sometimes with jealousy, I'll see people my age, especially on social media, and it seems like kind of they found their passion or, they grew up, I didn't have the best, childhood with all these opportunities and things like that. So they may have had opportunities to go, see football games, do engineering camps or do whatever the case might be to kind of build their interests and stuff. And so I never felt that I had that. And from that, what I've learned is that you always have to play the cards that you were dealt. You can't wish for a different hand.
Yep.
And I think that too many times people sit back and they're like, well, I don't know what my passion is, or, I wish I could be doing what they're doing, where instead they could build into a place like that if they just started where they're at. They took advantage of the people that they knew around them, the job that they're at, they crushed it as best they could, and they always kept their eyes open for opportunity. What could be popping up that I can take advantage of? Because the one thing that I feel like is in lack in today's day and age is people that are willing to do the hard work, put in the work, think for themselves. And those opportunities pop up where, I remember there was a time in college when I was going through exercise science, and there was a guy that I'd met there at the gym. And he's like, hey, yeah, you could come down to the lab and work with me personally. You seem like a great guy. Like, we were just kind of shooting a shit about some of the stuff I was reading, some magazines and some things like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that could have been an opportunity if I would have actually taken the time to go and hang out with him and spend time with him. That could have been a whole different path for me. And I think everyone runs into opportunities like that. But if you're sitting at home and you're like, well, I don't know, I'd rather just go out with my friends, you're never going to get those opportunities. You're going to go, you're going to go drink for the night. You're going to go hang out with your friends. And I'm not saying I have times where I like to go out and have a good time as well, but where do you want to be in life in 5-10 years? Like, growing up with the childhood and stuff that I had, like, my biggest dream was always to have a family and do it right. And with that, I need resources. And for those resources, I don't need to work hard for those. So I've always had that, that I'm fighting for to go and do. And then of course, like I said, there are times where you might want to have fun and stuff on the side, but if you spend too much time thinking about how do I enjoy life and how do I always just get this instant gratification, you're going to end up with nothing. I mean,
so let's talk about actual habits. Let's talk about the rituals or the habits that you do. For example, how much time do you either read or listen to podcasts or have YouTube on the background? And when you're at the gym, how do you use net time? Or what are the things that you do to prime every single day to win and to fortify your brain? And how do you cut out the negativity?
I think to cut out the negativity is exactly what you're saying, is I'm always plugging into something, and it might not always be, because sometimes where I'll get in trouble is I need to learn about taxes or something, and I'll buy a book and start listening to it. I'm like, wow, this is boring as shit. and I'll kind of lose interest in it. But so I've found it's more or less finding stuff that you find interesting in that moment. I'll go through periods of time where I listen to music and it's actually motivating because I'll be daydreaming about, actually crushing it at work or doing something. And then I'll get bored of that. And, I really like, again, science and things like that. So the Huberman podcast is something I listen to a lot. He's got stuff in there about sleep and exercise and things like that. And Kori always jokes with me because I listen to it on like 2-speed, which it kind of bothers me.
By the way, this is kind of an indication of Caleb's mind and how it works. Like, I fucking hate using his laptop because he's got the mouse on his laptop goes triple the speed of mine. So I barely touch it off screen because he read something at one point that, hey, if you speed those things up or listening to a podcast, it's like 2.5 times the normal speed. He can get through more information. Like, that's how his mind thinks as far as how much time does he have and how much information can he get out of it.
That's the cool thing about humans, though, is because you adapt so fast. So now if I listen to something on 1 speed, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall asleep. So, but no, those are things that I do too, because it varies. There's another thing that I like to do is when I'm working, especially if it's something monotonous, I love documentaries. So I just watched one recently with Jonah Hill. I was watching one about on Netflix about swear words and stuff like that. So just things that interest me, that just like, those are things that motivate me because it shows, also, especially with like science, it shows like how people thought things were one way and now they're totally different. And which that means to me is that the world is so new to us still. Like, there's so much opportunity. Like, look what Elon Musk is doing, bought Twitter. And, I was listening to, one of his lives on Twitter here today. And it's just like the way he thinks is like to really have the ability to do anything. Started off with PayPal, then he went into Tesla and then into SpaceX. And it's like, those are the heroes that you want to look forward to and, and look at, not necessarily the ones that you see on TV as far as like, the comics and stuff like that, which are great too. But, like looking at someone like that, it's like, holy shit, like how do I, get to, not necessarily, I might not expect to ever get to that level, but I do know that there's an opportunity to change lives maybe on a smaller scale compared to what he's doing. And it's all about having the same philosophy and the same mission of, doing the best for all those around you and, living by a philosophy. So
here's something that I want to point out here, because when I grew up, I was very fortunate, as you guys know my story, when I was 18 years old, and I had a mentor that was very, very successful, took me under his wing. But the thing is, so many people look at it and say, well, Caleb made a very good point earlier, is like, you got to deal, you have to, the cards you were dealt, you were dealt. You cannot change those cards that you were dealt. But what you can change is how you play those cards. And one of the things that people talk about is, well, I don't have anybody to plug into. I don't have the kind of people that you have to associate yourself with. People that are in my hometown, they just want to go party and go to the bars and do this other shit and get high and everything else, which is, again, that's their choice. How do you find those people? Well, if they're not around you, guess what you do? You have the perfect ability to follow them. And now with the way the internet and YouTube and everything else, you can follow and watch the best of the best. All these people. For example, I follow Ed Milet. You guys will love Ed Milet. He's raw, just real. No bullshit. You can follow Tony Robbins. You can follow Gary Vee. You can follow, all these people, the best of the best people, and they're giving all the best information they have to you. So you can pick mentors that aren't around you that you can plug into and focus on. With my mind, every single day, I'm listening to something. I'm watching something. I have channels that I follow. I'm on YouTube Premium. Sounds dumb. It costs me, I don't know, $18 a month, whatever it is.
Hate commercials.
I hate commercials. it interrupts my pattern, and if my phone shuts off, the video shuts off. I like at the gym. It's no extra time. I'm moving. I'm doing things. And I'm listening to those things. By the way, a couple quick things. One is, if you guys want to plug into my social media that we're doing, not social media, excuse me, my playlist. I have a YouTube playlist that my team asked me a few years ago. What do you watch on YouTube, or what do you plug into? And so I do a curation of things that you can listen to or watch, and you simply go to motivation.korilee.com. motivation.korilee.com. Somebody type in the chat. And then the second thing is that if you want to follow all the things that we do, simply go to korilee.live, and you can see all of the things that we do. Make sure Kid, when you get done, I'm going to put my motivation playlist on that as well. Yeah. But you can follow us all on social media. I'm not saying I have the answers. I'm simply saying this, that the reason why I've won all of these years, the reason why my mind is where it's at, is because I chose the same thing Caleb did. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I chose not to go party all the time, not to do other side shit. I saw my friends having a great time, but I would rather go to the Bahamas or go to go to Cancun or go somewhere amazing or go on a cruise or do something that they never got a chance to do. And I was doing that shit at 18, 19, 20, 21 years old because I was foregoing all the petty shit, the drama shit, and you know, I would make sure that I was in peak performance, that I could plug into the right people and I could do those things that they only dreamt about. And so you got to fortify your mind, because here's the deal. My question to you is, how many hours out of your day are there people saying, Caleb, you're fucking amazing? Caleb, you got it. No, I do that to you all the time. Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, how often do you have people that are around you saying you're a rock star, you're crushing it, motivate you? And how much time are you spending with people that are pulling you backwards or they're neutral in life? They're not going to go anywhere. They're going to be the same people at the bars, the same people that are watching football every single weekend. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm simply saying you got to choose what you want your path to be. You got to choose if you want to win and you want to be a baller and you want to be somebody who has what they only dream about. And if you do that for a period of time, the reason why Caleb has won is not from the $12 fucking an hour he's making at 19 years old. He's won because he's making 6 figures. He'll make 7 figures over this next year. He's able to do that because he chose a path, and that path compounded. That path compounded on him. But Caleb, what are some of the things that you do, again, to fortify your mind? The things you're plugging into, the things maybe name some of the things you plug into every single week or every single day to get your mind where it needs to be to prime yourself to win for that day.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm always listening to audiobooks. That the Huberman podcast that I named earlier is what I've been listening to a lot lately. And then trying to think here off the top of my head, there hasn't really been a whole lot, you know, and that's the thing too, is it kind of speaks to, I go through kind of phases where, you know, I'll plug into a lot of those things. And then there's sometimes where it's just, you know, it's really just, you get up, you do the family thing, you get to work, you get back. Again, exercise has been a staple for me. You get back to work. I would say YouTube is a big thing for me too, because, you know, especially, you know, you get the whole algorithm and stuff. You start finding stuff that you like. Other things will kind of pop up, and I really let my interests guide me. It doesn't have to be anything really specific towards, you know, something that I'm really specific, you know, trying to learn for work or anything like that. It's just something that keeps my mind from not wandering, because that's where I feel like, you know, people can really get into trouble, is when you let too much space. And I'm not saying there's not good, you know, time to, you know, meditate and to do things like that, but when you let there be too much space for your mind to get negative is kind of when you get into trouble. So I think really the biggest takeaway for that is just to make sure you're always plugging into something. Something else that I do, and that's not necessarily a book or anything like that, is, you know, writing. It kind of helps get your thoughts onto paper and really understand, you know, especially if you're trying to, maybe I'm trying to solve a problem at work, like a process or something like that, I might write through it. Or if I'm trying to understand, you know, what's the best way to spend my time, you know, again, you know, even though exercise is great, sometimes I got to cut it down a little bit because I have to spend more time at work or doing things like that. So, you know, writing's been a huge thing for me as well. I could pull up my phone here,
by the way, great job. I agree 100%. Is the garden is your mind. And the best way I explain how the mind works is what Jim Rohn said years ago, is your brain is a mental factory. So imagine your brain is a factory, and whatever you put into that factory is what you're going to get back out of it, right? So if you're producing something, you're making something, this is your mental factory. Another way you can look at it is that this is the program code. If you're writing code for something, the code runs based upon the programming. You have the ability with your brain, you have the ability to reprogram anything you want. The best, people say, well, what if I have this programming from growing up and the negative attitudes, the negative things that I have? The best way to look at it is, remember the old records, right? You have an old record player, and that record, most people will go through life at about 25 years old, and that record just keeps spinning, and they play the same story over and over again on repeat. I have family that's that way. I mean, close family that in the last, 20 years, it's been the same record on repeat. So what you got to do is you got to make the decision to take a nail and scratch the shit out of that record so it'll never play again that way. You got to scratch the record, and then you got to choose what you're going to plug back in, and that, because you're going to create a void. You're creating a void of replaying the same stuff. And Caleb made a very important point, which is that you've got to keep plugging into things. You got to keep expanding that. If you an idle mind will fuck you up. It does me. Tell me if that's true for you guys that are watching this. An idle mind, when I have nothing going on, nothing in my brain, is when I start thinking of the negative shit. I start replaying things in the past. I start thinking about things that I'm fearful of. I start looking at things that aren't, what's not working in my life, my relationships, my business. I start looking at all kinds of negative shit. What I know is the best advice I can give you, because the only advice I give myself when I feel like I'm in a bad place, is I've got to keep moving. I've got to choose to keep moving, choose to keep plugging things into my brain, choose to get rid of the people that are toxic to me. I've got to choose whether, again, I love them or not, care about them or not. I have to look at my own mind and say, who are the people that fuel me to be better, that are in my camp? They're going to give me the advice, give me the structure, give me the habits, give me the rituals, give me the drive to be somebody better than I am. And who are the people, whether, again, they have best intentions or not, who are the people that are toxic to me? Who are the people that are not fueling me and not fueling who I believe that I want to become and not giving me the examples that I want to follow? And I'm going to extract those people as much as I possibly can. Are you doing that? Do you realize that, again, we have our parents, our peers, our teachers, people we're around every single day, society, we have all the news, all these things around us. You've got to choose in 2023 if you're going to win, first of all. If you're going to win, you got to first extract the shit that's causing you problems. You can't always pull it all out, but what you can do is you can limit the association that you have with the things in society, the news, the people you hang out with. I talked to a gal, Caleb, at the Christmas party we were at in Houston last week, this last week, and she was talking about how, she has to, like, her news watching. She goes, I know there's shit happening in the news. I watch a total of 5 to 10 minutes a day. Every single person I know that's massively successful has told me the same shit over the last 2.5 decades. They limit their time. They want to know and be relevant, know what's happening in the news, but they don't sit there and ponder on it because they can't change it anyway, right? They can't change the negative shit. They want to create their own news. So my question to all of you is, what are you currently doing to fortify your mind? Who do you have to back away from putting time and energy into in 2023? What are you going to do every single day to plug into? And most important, again, who are you going to completely extract from your life that's causing you challenges?
And find out what you're going to, how do I say this, turn the hot water on, go all in, go all out on. I think that's another thing, too, is making the decision that there is going to be something that you're going to put your time and energy into. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's your work, maybe it's a career. But to keep you from getting distracted from, the boredom time where your mind can wander and you get those negative, habits. So find a way to go all in.
I want to give you guys 2 lists I want you to create. This is the homework. And this is the homework for every one of you to look at. Number 1 is, what do you need to extract from your life? So take 2 columns on a piece of paper when we get done with this, or on your phone. The first column is, what do I need to extract out of my life? Name them. If there's certain people that cause you angst and challenges and negative shit, again, even if it's for the best interest, meaning they might have good intentions. Your family might have good intentions to tell you that, hey, you need to not do this or whatever, because they want to protect you. They might have best intentions, but it doesn't matter. If there are people in your life that are negative and pulling you back, not motivating you to become better, not a great example for you, extract them 100%. If you can't extract them 100%, because sometimes they're close to you, then limit your association, limit your time with them. What are the things you've got to get rid of? And actually write it down. Are there 3 people? There 2, whatever it is. Who and what do I need to extract? The second column is, what am I going to do to build my mind up? What am I going to do to put positive things in my mind every single day? Who am I going to plug into? This first quarter, every single one of you should have something you're going to plug into. Is it a Tony Robbins event online, something that we're doing online? Is it every single week plugging into this podcast or any other podcast out there? Is it adding certain people to YouTube? Is it getting YouTube Premium? What are the things you're actually going to do to make sure this next year is different? What are you going to do? What are you going to avoid? And what are you going to add? Those are the 2 things I want you to work on. So when we end this, I want you to actually take the next 15 minutes and do that. Not for me, for you. Not for me, for you. I've done this already. I know there's people that I have to associate myself with. There's people that I don't. And there's people that I need to limit because it's my mind. I got to fortify my mental factory, fortify my mind. Choose what I'm plugging into it. What are you going to do? How are you going to win in 2023, and how is it going to be different? I'm telling you, Caleb is a phenomenal example of what it takes to win. And I will tell you why he wins, because I promise you, he doesn't feel like it every single day. He doesn't feel like getting up and grinding. He doesn't feel like sleeping 4 hours a night sometimes and working every single day, or missing out on family outings or doing certain things because Ed calls him and says, hey, we got to get this shit done. No one loves doing that. No one loves pushing. No one loves seeing everyone else going off and frolicking and doing all kinds of shit when you're grinding. But I will tell you, that is why he wins. And that's why I look up to him. He's a lot younger than I am, and I look at myself as being almost like a surrogate father to Caleb when he was 14 years old. The thing is that you got to choose to win. You got to choose to be better. You got to choose. Caleb didn't know shit about personal development or how to lead people or how to develop things. He knew nothing.
I still don't know shit.
But but the thing is, his personality is infectious. When you're around him, you're like, shit, I better step my game up because this fucker's going to outwork me. This person's going to figure it out. This person's going to because he keeps putting so much positive things in. This was my attitude in my early, late teens and early 20s, is I knew that if I kept putting enough positive shit in here and learning and expanding, I would eventually have some positive shit come out. That sounds bad, but it sounds stupid. I would have like positive shit in here, positive shit happens. Just the way it is. But if you're not ready for it, if you're not fortifying your mind, the shit that's going to happen this next year to you, here's what's going to happen. It's going to derail you. You're going to spend a day, a week, a month being negative and shit not happening and things not moving. But if you every single day prime your brain to win, every single day, spend 30 minutes every single day, something positive pumping into your brain. And Ed Milet, something you're putting into your brain. Every single day, read something, listen to something, watch something every single day. Every single day. What if you just woke up every single day and asked yourself, laying in bed, what am I grateful for in my life? What's positive in my life? So you're framing it already. You might say, shit, I don't know. Last night fucked me up. Last night I couldn't sleep, whatever it might be. I self-talk all the time. My brain's always battling good and evil, positive, negative. When I don't sleep at night, that's where the demons are there, and I got to fucking get up in the morning and say, I'm still going to win today. I don't give a shit. I'm going to choose to control my brain. And that's the difference. I know where Caleb thinks and how I think and the King thinks and other people is I wake up and I tell my brain, you're not in fucking control of me. You're not the master. I'm the fucking master. I'm going to tell you how you operate. I'm going to tell you the program you're going to run today. All right. Thank you, Caleb. This Tuesday, a couple days, we're going to go live again. And appreciate all of you guys being here today.
Thanks, everybody.
Have an awesome Sunday evening,
Glad
everyone.
to have you here.